The Acting Up with GTC podcast is a production of the Granbury Theater Company. The Granbury Theater Company is a 501c3 nonprofit theater arts production company based in the historic Granbury Opera House in Granbury, Texas. Welcome to Acting Up with GTC, the official podcast of the Granbury Theater Company, where we pull back the curtain and give you a behind-the-scenes look at everything happening at the historic Granbury Opera House. Well, all right, welcome to the Acting Up with GTC podcast. My name is Micky Shearon, and I will be your host today. My co-host, Matt Beutner, he is neck deep in auditions for our upcoming summer camp, which kicks off here on July the 7th. And so I'm flying solo today, but I am so excited to have a very, very special guest with me today on the podcast, Miss Marty Van Kleek. Marty, welcome to the Acting Up with GTC podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, and so for those of you that may not have been around a long time and be aware of the history of the beautiful Granbury Opera House, where we are so blessed and privileged to call our home, Marty is one of the original people who were there at the very, very beginning of the Granbury Opera House opening on June the 19th, 1975. And yes, if you're doing the math, you are correct. We are getting ready to celebrate our 50th anniversary of the Granbury Opera House. And so I thought it'd be great to bring Marty on and let's just talk a little bit about what it was like 50 years ago, starting the Granbury Opera House. So Marty, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then let's talk about the Opera House.
Well, first of all, I'm so glad to be here. And when you said it was going to be the 50th anniversary of the Opera House, I was stunned. I thought, how is that possible? I was a theater major in college at TCU, and graduating in 1975. And a friend of mine, Jerry Abbott, had just auditioned for this new theater company that spring. And he came back. I was in the middle of a show, I think Shadow of a Gunman, something very Irish. And he said, you've got to go audition for this theater. I just did it. And so I said, well, okay. And so Jerry went with me. Now, Jerry was the leading man in the early years of the Granbury Opera House. Right. Very funny. We always say he was Jim Carrey before there was a Jim Carrey. And anyway, I say that he was the one who got me there, because I waited and waited and waited to hear back from Joanne Miller, who was sort of our founding mother of the Opera House. Right. And I didn't hear anything. We graduated and we were all having our dinner, and I was supposed to move the next morning and didn't hear anything. And then finally, right before I was going to go back to Corpus Christi, where my parents lived, I got a phone call from Joanne and said I could join the company. So I was thrilled, but I think it still had to do with Jerry Abbott. Maybe she thought if I didn't come, he wasn't going to come. So anyway, that's how I ended up there. And that very first summer, and we lived in the Shanley house. I don't know if you all know that, before there was the old hospital dorm.
I actually was not aware of that.
Yes, yeah. And it had been vacant, and I always thought the Shanley house looked like an old bordello. There was no air conditioning upstairs. Downstairs was the costume shop and I think a little living room parlor kind of area. And Kathy Flint, who was local Granbury, was our stage manager. And I think she lived downstairs. And the rest of us were upstairs. And it was so hot, no air conditioning. And a fellow named David Riggins was from Stephenville. And his dad bought an air conditioner for the window at the Shanley house. And we'd pull these mattresses out into the hallway at night to get some relief in the cool air. And we got one meal a day at the Nut House Hotel. And that one meal, those cold water biscuits. They were so good. And I didn't get paid that first summer. And so I got that one meal a day and a place to live at the Shanley house. And I would stuff my pockets full of those cold water biscuits for breakfast and lunch the next day.
Those taste pretty good. Those taste pretty good in the middle of the night when you're hungry, right?
It did. It was great.
Wow. Well, that's as I've said, have always said, and we all know, theater kids will just about do anything to do theater, and even live in a like a dorm without air conditioning and have one meal a day.
We were resilient. And
Absolutely.
I think when we got there, actually, some of the townspeople who were very involved in the renovation of the Opera House had some what they called baby showers, and gave us things that we could use for props and costumes. And so we had a collection of things that we could sort of pull from and add on to, although we made a lot that first summer too. It was, and we were starting from scratch. We had no flats. We had, nothing. We were building all of that from scratch. And we had some footlights originally, and then the footlights got moved a little forward. We put a little sort of passerella around the footlights, and then finally, years later, the footlights left completely. But it was interesting because I thought Joanne was so incredibly resourceful. She was the founding mother of the Opera House, and she had gotten the original seats for the theater from Carswell Air Force Base. They were rejects from Carswell. And I think she got the grand drape from a porn place in Dallas. And she got some old lighting instruments from Casa Manana. And we had those dimmers that you had to pull like this.
Oh yeah.
And the old fly rail system. I had a friend when I was managing who came and said she saw it was a pin rail system, and you had to pull a drop up and then wrap it around the pins,
right,
and then loop it off. She said she'd only read about those in books. She'd never seen one.
She didn't know those existed anymore in reality.
Yeah, and over the years, we did have a couple of interns who missed that last loop on the pin rail system, went flying up with the rope.
Oh my gosh, that is so fun to think about that. So the first after the community, kind of banded together and did the remodel or the renovation or the salvage of the Opera House, because at the time in the late 60s, early 70s, the Opera House was basically just a shell.
A shell, yeah, right. There was no balcony. The roof had fallen in, and this is the story I heard, because Lou Nutt was instrumental in saving the Opera House. Mm-hmm. And Joe originally, I think, had thought about just demolishing that whole side of the square. And she was like, no, you can't do that. And she wanted to save the Opera House. And it was her pleading to Joe that really did save that structure. And then Joanne came down to visit a friend who lived in Granbury, Claudine Hemstrott. She was going to play golf. She was in Dallas doing a show with Bob Cummings, whom later came to Granbury, and we got to meet. So she came down to play golf with this friend of hers, and this friend showed her the Opera House. And then from there, she got so interested in it. And I think they did a contract with her for 6 months to see what she could get done. Well, it was amazing. I mean, she was a wheeler dealer. And she got a huge steel beam from a steel yard, in Dallas, and they drove that beam down into the square. I mean, it was interesting. Just the logistics of getting it in at that time.
Yeah.
She was getting the seats and the grand drape and just bargaining with everybody she could, and a lot of local people. I think Mr. Brooks plastered the walls of the Opera House originally. I mean, a lot of local artisans pitched in. And at one point in time, all the chairs were needle pointed. And I remember Mr. Sanders, who had a shop over on the square, he did the whole entire front row. Everybody in the community pitched in. Doris Luton was integral in doing a lot, and she and her sister, they did the first playbills, they sold the ads. And Doris, who was, John Luton now, the First National Bank, this was his mother, father. Right. And Doris was in several shows with us that first summer. And so we have great fond memories of Doris. So funny. Oh my gosh, she was funny. And so, yeah, it was getting a little of stuff from everywhere. And then that second summer, the hospital was moving to the new building out on the highway there. And so we got to take over the old Hood County dorm. We had some really nice grant money that helped us purchase that.
Right.
And so the second summer when I got there, I was a little late because I was working on my master's thesis project. And I arrived just in time for the opening of Carnival. And the only room left was, and it wasn't really a room that was left, it was the closet for Jerry Abbott and Chapman Locke. And I had to sleep underneath the sink in a little area there.
Yeah.
And I was working on my master's, so I had a little bookcase full of books. And we got one meal a day. We had a cook in the little cafeteria area in that dorm. And I remember that the dog started showing up at the front door. And so we sort of adopted the dog. We would put food out left over after we had a meal from our cook. Mary was her name. And so this dog started showing up. Well, we adopted the dog, and I would sneak that dog in the dorm, named Biscuit. And so I would be in that bed underneath that little vanity, and I put a light bulb in the wall so I could study late at night. And the dog would curl up right next to me, and I'd roll over, fall asleep, and I'd hit that hot light bulb, and I'd jump up, and then the dog would jump up, and
Well,
it was
now,
great.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but when that little dog passed away, it was buried there on the grounds there by the dorm, correct?
It was, and there was a plaque there for a long time that a friend of mine, Corky Plaza, put, because that dog was named Biscuit, and it was in, I don't know, 3 or 4 shows. It used to come and go as it pleased. Everybody on the square knew her. She'd walk in and out of the stores, and I'd get a call, oh, Biscuit's down here over at the Nut House, or Biscuit's over here at Janine's, or at the ice cream parlor. Anyway, so yeah, and so when she finally passed away, we buried her outside the dorm there where we found her under the tree. And I thought when the dorm was knocked down a couple of years ago now, I thought they're going to find all kinds of animals because it became a thing. When anybody had an animal that passed away, it was buried over under that tree. And
Oh,
so there were all kinds of animals over there over the years, over those 30 years.
right. Well, we utilized that, or that building was utilized as a dorm for the Opera House right up until December 2017, when the city basically decided to knock the building down, and all that time that building has been used as a dorm. Now it's been used for additional things along with the door. I mean, it was used for a lot of storage, obviously over the years, but it was continuously used from that time up until 2017 as a dorm. And
When
boy,
we
what a great. I mean, just what a great thing to have for and of course y'all were a repertoire company at that time.
we were, yes,
And
we had a
y'all,
resident company.
right, and y'all would generally, was it mainly summer stock type shows, or was your season basically over the summer, or how did your seasons
Well,
operate?
what happened was the very first summer, it was just a season of 4 musicals. We did 4 musicals in 3 months. And it opened, I think, on the 19th of June, which you're talking about.
Mhm.
Joanne Miller did a concert, which opened the summer. So
Okay,
we had something going on while we were in rehearsal. So she did a
right,
concert. I think Jerry Abbott, Dina Farrell, and the Jerry Hit Trio did that concert that first weekend. Oh my gosh, there were flowers and cars, limos driving up. It was quite the to do
yeah,
for that first concert. And then we opened the following week, I believe, with Gold in the Hills. It was a melodrama.
right.
And I was in the chorus. I was a Bowery girl. And Jerry Abbott was the villain. And
Of
a
course,
local
of
girl, Lou
course.
Ann Gideon, I think played, no, Dixie Howarth, who was a Granbury girl, played the lead.
Hmm.
And I think Lou Ann Gideon was in it. Her mother had lived in Granbury for a long time. And Drenda Lewis,
Hmm.
local. Drenda did a dual role. She played in the orchestra pit. She played
I think
bass clarinet.
yeah, I was going to say, I think it was clarinet or bass
Yes,
clarinet.
bass clarinet. And then she did a lot of shows. Quite funny. She
Yeah,
became quite an actress, and she learned to design costumes there. So she got
absolutely. Yeah, she was our costume person for a number of years, and
uh-huh.
even after with Granbury Theater Company. And so, yeah, a lot of great history there, and I don't know that people really think about when I occasionally will do tours of of the Opera House, and for people who are new in town, or just different civic groups that they're interested and want to come tour the Opera House. And when I tell them that the Opera House, as well as the rest of the town square, really, for the most part, not all of it, but for the most part, the town square was just as run down and dilapidated as the Opera House
It
was.
was, yes. Yeah.
And that, with of course, the main catalyst for, everything basically kind of changing and shifting, I know was the damming up of the Brazos River, and the forming of Lake Granbury. But next to that, nothing has been more significant in the modern history of Granbury, Texas, than the reopening of the Granbury Opera House in
Well, it
1975.
was pretty vital in the renovation. There were originally 6 women who started that renovation. Janine Macon, who had a beautiful store called Janine's.
Mhm.
Mary Lou Watkins, who started the Nut House. Um, oh gosh, the names are going to go out of my brain. I can't remember all of them. The women who started the Nutshell. They were so instrumental in that beginning. And then Joanne, when she came and began the Opera House, and we started to have busloads of people come from surrounding areas, then it really sort of, um, you know, I think started building the square up. We lost Dub's, tractor place, and some new places moved in there, and the gas station on the corner became the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And things sort of started to, some of those buildings started to improve, and people were really starting to do the renovation. But I was going to tell you, I didn't get to this part. So that first summer, we just did a summer season. And then in that fall, Joanne decided to try to fill in some things, some of that time, so it wasn't just closed. And so she brought in some concerts, I think, and she decided she would produce 2 shows. One was the Fantastics. I think she did it in the fall, and then in the spring, I think she did See How They Run with Doris Luton.
Right.
And those were really kind of the most popular of the things that she did. And so I think I came back the next summer, and she decided she wanted to have a resident company there. And so she kept Jerry Abbott and myself, and who else? Joan Jenkins. Can't remember all the people who came that second summer, but there were a group of us that stayed on. And then we started to do a show. Gosh, we did 12 shows a year. We were never dark. We rehearsed one, played one, and forgot one.
Yes, yeah,
You were rehearsing a show and during the daytime, and you were playing it at night.
right.
Um, and we all did the costumes and the sets. So when we weren't working, we weren't in rehearsal. And I remember saying, after we finished that second summer season, I said to Joanne, I think, would it be okay with you if I did the costumes for your good man, Charlie Brown? And she was like, okay, yes, that'd be good. We didn't have a costume designer after the summer.
Right.
And then the next show, I can't remember. I think it might have been Girls in 509, something like that, a little comedy.
Mhm.
And I said, she goes, would you be interested in designing those costumes? And I said, yeah, I think I would. And then the next one was like, now for the costumes for this show, what we want is, I just sort of became the costume
You
designer
just
as
kind of
well.
morphed into the costume designer.
I did.
Funny how that happens.
Yes, it is. It is. Years later, after I left the Opera House, I went to Florida to a dinner theater there called the Show Palace Dinner Theater. And I went as an actress, and I was so bored. I didn't know what to do with myself after I had seen all the local towns and could get home at night for the show. And I said, have you got something I can do? And they needed some dresses. that were supposed to look like the white Christmas dresses, those red velvet.
Right.
I'll make those for you. Well, and then it was like I finished those, and it was, what else can I do? Well, they needed some Tin Pan Alley skirts. Oh, I'll do those. Well, for 2 years, I ended up being in shows and doing costumes there.
Well, that's talk about being a throwback to the way things used to be done, and I mean, you did everything.
You did everything.
I mean, you did your own costumes, you built your own sets, you did the actors. You were basically responsible for doing every element of the show, and
Exactly.
including acting in it.
Including acting. Listen, this was funny because when I was managing director, I was out front. We used to have these old milk cans that were painted in copper, and they were for cigarette butts. So people go outside and smoke. And I always ended up having to clean the cigarette butts before the matinee. And so I would go out there, and we used to have that assigned. Everybody had to take a turn cleaning cigarette butts. But anyway, there I was, managing director, and I'm out there picking up cigarette butts when the manager of Casa Manana comes over. And oh, hi. Just picking up a few cigarette butts here.
Oh yeah.
Always had to do it all.
Oh, absolutely. It's. Go ahead.
One other funny thing I wanted to tell you: when we first opened the theater, the only bathroom was backstage.
Right.
And so, if you had to go to the bathroom during the run of the show, you could go. If you were the first one, you were fortunate, but nobody could flush until intermission because the audience could hear it.
Hey, this is Micky Shearon talking to you today about my buddy Joe Jones with 5P Roofing and Construction. 5P Roofing and Construction is your local roofing and general contracting company. They specialize in residential and commercial re-roofs and insurance claims. I've used Joe myself, and I could not recommend him more. Give Joe a call today at 817-608-7663 for a free quote. And be sure to tell Joe that you heard about it on the Acting Up with GTC podcast.
And those original dressing rooms, those were built behind the Opera House and in actually the fire zone. And I think Joanne built those without ever asking. I think she just
Probably
apologized, but kept them, never moved them.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It's better to ask forgiveness than permission. So
exactly.
yeah.
Until years later, when we bought the Quonset hut,
Right.
The Nuts had owned the Quonset hut behind where we did the sets, but we rented that space from them.
Right.
And then when we finally ended up with a Quonset hut, we were able to move the dressing rooms back there, so they were no longer in that breezeway area.
Right. Well, now kind of moving forward a little bit, the Opera House had just, basically its popularity just exploded. And I moved to Granbury in the mid '80s, and one of the things that actually made me want to move to Granbury is my wife and I came to visit my brother who had moved down here, and I had an uncle that lived in Brownwood some years. And we had, when I was very young, I remember we had come through Granbury on the way to Brownwood. And that's the only, I just remember it being basically just a sleepy, dusty little town, and there was nothing much here, but of course at that time, Highway 377 was Pearl Street and went right through downtown, right through the square. And I just remember it just being just a kind of a sleepy, almost felt like a deserted ghost town in the late '60s when I was a kid.
Yes.
And we would go through there. But then in the early '80s, we came down and visited my brother, and we did the fireworks. And it was on the 4th of July.
Right.
We did the fireworks. We did went to the 4th of July parade, and we went to see a show at the Opera House. And those were the three things that we did, and we just fell in love with the town. And but it was primarily the Opera House that is like, oh my gosh, this is so cool that there's this place here, right here in Granbury, and doing these great shows. And we moved to Granbury exactly 1 year later. We moved in on July 4th of the very next year. And but I know, just remember seeing the tour buses and just lines and line, really when there was nothing much else going on the square or in Granbury at all, because there just wasn't that much going on like there is today. Seems like there's something almost every weekend anymore. But the Opera House was the economic engine for Granbury for many years.
It was, and it was people who came down, shopped, ate, gassed up their cars, stayed overnight. And then we bought local. We bought the wood from Norman's Lumberyard. We used the local office supply. I mean, so we ate as actors locally. We bought locally. So it was an incredible boon to the economy. I mean, not just our little company. That's not a lot. But when you're building sets, you know how much lumber that takes.
Oh, absolutely.
It might have just been a little input from that perspective, but still it was all, we were 30 people all shopping locally and eating on the, close to the square. And then all of those visitors, it was huge.
As I love to say, there's very, very few people, and I'm sure it's probably was the same then as it is now. Very, very few people come see a show at the Granbury Opera House, and that's all they do. I mean, they're either going to get lunch before the show, or they're going to get dinner after the show. They're maybe have some dessert or drinks after the show.
Walk around the square.
Yeah, walk around the square, shop, and find things they can't live without. And if they're from out of town, maybe they stay a night in a hotel, and or if they don't spend the night, they're going to probably buy gas at a gas station.
Exactly.
So the residual effect of the Granbury Opera House, I think,
it was huge.
It just can't be overstated. The importance of that, that building and everything that was going on there. And as we moved on through, through the 80s and 90s. Now, you at one point you became the managing director in what year?
I think it was December of 95. I remember I had just the Christmas holiday to get the first show up. And I called upon some friends of mine who had a group called Howard and the Fine Sisters. And they came in and opened that season and were fabulous.
Right. And then you were there as managing director through into the early 2000s, right?
Right. I think I left in 2004.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yep. That was my kind of recollection and everything. And
as a matter of fact, I have a little star from our 25th anniversary.
Oh, you know what? I actually have one of those from the 25th anniversary. It's actually sitting on the desk in my other office, and and one of the coffee mugs. There was a coffee mug,
yes,
and everything, and so. And so after you left as managing director, I know the Opera House was under various forms of management over the next coming years, and I know Mike Skiles with Texas Family Musicals moved in there sometime around maybe 2006 or 7, something like that. And was there until 2011, and which is when the Opera House closed for its next renovation. Although at the time we closed, in 2011, there really wasn't a plan. There was no plan to of what was going to happen with the Opera House, and so it was kind of uncertain as to how long it was going to be dark, and it's set dark for 6 months before the city finally there was some changeover on the city council, and I think a lot of that was there was some politics involved. That the city, I think, had the city bought the Opera House before you had left.
Yes, it's an unfortunate story. After I left, some fellows from New York came in and decided that the name Granbury Opera House wasn't good. So they changed the name of the company to the Star Theater, the Texas Star Theater, I think. And
You know what? Now that you say that, I remember that. Yeah.
yes, unfortunately, and ran it into the ground in no time flat. They, as I understand it, took a loan out to pay for some things and hocked the buildings, and then couldn't make the payment on the loan, and the city just went ahead and foreclosed and took the buildings, paid the bank, and took the buildings over.
Right. Right. And in retrospect, while that obviously was a not a positive chapter in the life of the Granbury Opera House, in hindsight, it turned out to be a pretty nice thing that happened.
Well, it gave a wonderful renovation eventually.
Yes, yeah. Eventually, it was some years late. It should have happened a little before it actually did. But you know what? That's another story for another time. The fact is,
Yes.
it finally happened, and and it's been the Opera House was closed for 2 years, and that was in the in that interim period, during that 2 years that the Opera House was closed, is when the Granbury Theater Company was formed, and then we started actually performing at the Granbury Live building on the adjacent to the Opera House, and we're there for about 18 months before the Opera House renovation was completed.
I think I realized that you had actually moved to that building. I remember seeing that you had done a show in the courthouse. I think it was 1776.
It was 1776. We did that show. The courthouse. It was kind of a perfect storm of bad stuff that befell Granbury. I mean, bad, but it ended up being positive. The courthouse renovation came in and started, and the square was torn to pieces for about 2 years. The courthouse parking lot was non-existent. It was a mud pit for about a year and a half, and unfortunately, that obviously had a real bad effect on traffic downtown and visitors coming down, and so many businesses ended up closing and just kind of going away during that period of time. Well, they finally got the courthouse renovation done, and they had remodeled the district courtroom on the second floor, kind of back to the way it was supposedly originally done when the courthouse was first built. And so they approached Granbury Theater Company about doing a show, 1776, in that district courtroom on the second floor.
I mean, that's just a more perfect.
Yeah, you're right. Wait, other than it being just audibly a horrible place to perform in. I mean, because they left the ceilings open, and so the ceilings are like 30 feet tall, and there's absolutely no acoustics, are non-existent in the building. And so, but, fact is that we were the first thing that happened back in the courthouse after its renovation was completed, and then we moved over to Granbury Live and performed there, because at that time that building was vacant, And so the city actually leased that building for us to use while
Oh,
the Opera House was being completed. And so yeah, so that's and and we've been it took a while, took some time. Once you stop an object from moving, it takes a little while to get it rolling again. And
yeah.
and what we found, we had what y'all had really established as Granbury and the Granbury Opera House specifically of being a major tourist destination. Once you fall off the tourism map,
Oh, hard to get back
it's
on.
hard to get back on.
Yes.
Oh, friend, let me tell you, I never would have in a million years would have never imagined how difficult it is to get back on the tourism map once you were there and then you fall off.
Yeah.
And so that was our biggest struggle for really the first 2 or 3 years was just to get our
Get through it.
name back out there and let people know, hey,
Yeah.
we're still here, and come back and see us. And so, but slowly but surely, it really started turning around, and we've had some really great times. But everything we do now, this is one thing I've really been cognizant of is wanting to be very intentional about building a bridge from because there's different the different management had different forms and it was different people and everything, but really the thread is consistent that runs through from 1975 to 2025. But I'm very cognizant of the fact that everything that we enjoy today is because of the group of people that were there in 1975, 50 years
Oh,
ago. And because you said it a while ago, when you're starting out and you're starting from scratch, theater is a very difficult thing to do, even under the best of
yeah.
circumstances. But when you're starting with nothing, it's I marvel at
Well,
what you folks were able to do and what you
oh,
were able to put together.
thank you. The thing that I'm proud of is that so many of us who went through the Opera House are still involved in theater today. David
Mhm.
Coffey, he came, I think, the
Uh-huh.
third season, and he's still doing theater all over the
Oh
country.
yeah.
Uh, there was now she was never an apprentice, but when I was managing, I would have older actors come in and work with young interns, and directors that would come in from New York or a choreographer from New York, so they could start to make some connections. Well, a lot of those people are still doing theater today. And Leslie Alexander, who played the Anna in The King and I, was in Mamma Mia on Broadway.
Mm.
One of our interns was in Annie on Broadway. Another one was in Wicked. It was the understudy for Glenda. And so many of them have gone on. I see them on TV. I see them in commercials. Um, and so I'm so proud of that legacy that whether Joanne was managing director or Donna Norton or myself, I look back and I think how many of us really made a career in theater, and that's not an easy thing to do.
No, no,
You know,
it's really not. And and the I think the legacy, not aside from that, I think the legacy is that y'all created something that has, for the last 50 years has withstood, the test of time. It has weathered, good economy, bad economy, good fortune, misfortune, and but it's still here. And so I think from that, obviously that was a dream that some people had, that the Opera House needed to be operational, and it needed, there needed to be a vibrant arts scene even in a little town like Granbury, Texas. There needs to
you
be a
know,
vibrant art scene.
it's funny that you say that because I remember, I think when Joanne was really, it was like the third season, and Joanne was really trying to get a push off to a good start for the summer season. And so she got George Ann Carter, and Amon Carter is probably a familiar name to you.
Hmm.
Well, Amon Carter Jr.'s wife was Georgianne Carter. And Joanne got her to come and play in Pal Joey, play the leading lady in Pal Joey. And of course, the Amon Carters owned the Fort Worth Star Telegram.
Right.
And they used to come and review shows at the Opera House. And Elston Brooks came to review Pal Joey. And we were backstage, and a couple of us were with Georgianne, and we said, "Oh, do you think he'll give us a good review?" And she goes, "If he doesn't, he'll be writing obituaries." But when that opening night came, that theater was filled with horseshoes and roses. And oh my gosh, it was quite the production.
Yeah.
And Amon Carter had, what's the TV station, the Fort Worth TV station?
There was, it used to be WBAP years ago.
Anyway, they came and filmed the show. And then we had a big party at Georgianne's house, and they showed the film.
Oh,
So
wow.
years later, there were a bunch of videos of shows. I don't know if you have them or not, but then back then in 75, 76, 77, 78, there was no video. So,
No.
so they filmed that show, and somewhere that film exists.
I would love to be able to get my hands on that someday. That would be
I don't know
very,
where
very
that is.
well, Marty, anything else you'd like to share? Any great stories or anything? I've really, really enjoyed talking with you. This is really fun.
Oh, I've enjoyed visiting with you too. There are just so many stories over the years that bring back such fond memories. And as a matter of fact, I have a lot of things I need to bring to you, of pictures of shows. I think, unfortunately, when the fellows from New York came, I think they dumped all the old files of photos. But I heard somewhere through the grapevine that David Coffey may have copies of the videos
Oh,
of shows.
okay.
So I might see him next week. I'll
Ask
see
him
him.
about, yeah, if you think about that, ask David about that.
And I did hear that recently the bust of Joanne Miller was discovered in a closet somewhere.
Yes, yes, and it's actually that was a while back, but it was found, and it's now at the we have loaned that to the Bridge Street History Center, and that has started. Oh, I guess started about 7 or 8 years ago, and it's turned into quite the nice little history museum of Granbury and Hood County history. But
I think I gave them a few things.
yeah, I think you did, and so and you had come down. I guess a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, you came down to a show and you brought me a box of stuff, and I gave that all to the Bridge Street History Center,
Oh,
and
good.
they have an exhibit right now for the 50th anniversary of the Opera House that is going on right now. And so if anybody's watching this or listening to this, if you want to see some really cool, interesting stuff as far as history of the Granbury Opera House is concerned, look up my friends with the Bridge Street History Center, and they're on social media, and go by and see that exhibit. I think you would really enjoy it, and it's a nice little history lesson.
I hope in that exhibit is a dress that Joanne wore. She had a dress that had belonged or was made for Gina Lollobrigida.
Oh,
And she wore it. It's just solid. It is so heavy. It was solid beads. And she wore it in Gold in the Hills, the very first show.
okay.
And it got packed away somewhere. When I came back to do some cleaning out after the guys left, I gave that dress, I think it was to the fellow who was the CDB director at the time, and
Okay.
said, "This needs to be saved and found a
Yeah.
home for," because it was in that very first show.
Wow.
And it had that funny history of having belonged or been made for Gina Lollobrigida.
Oh, how fun! How fun is that?
Yeah.
Well, again, it's it's a great cause for celebration.
Indeed.
50 years, and there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and good times and bad times. That if those walls could talk,
Oh my
in,
gosh.
in the Opera House. So
Well, congratulations to you, Mickey, on bringing it to its 50th anniversary. That's something you
well,
should be very
we
proud of.
we are honored. We acknowledge and recognize that the work and the sacrifice and the commitment of people like yourself and so many others that went into establishing the Granbury Opera House and then making it really just an iconic part of Granbury. I still talk to people who have never been to Granbury, but they've heard of Granbury,
Right.
and almost to a person, the one frame of reference that they have, the thing they've heard about, is the Granbury Opera House.
Mhm.
And they may have never seen the lake. They may not even know Granbury has a lake, but they've heard of the Granbury Opera House. And so it is to say that it is an iconic structure I think, is an understatement. And
I have two quick stories I don't know if you have time for.
absolutely.
One is Mary Martin came to the Granbury Opera House.
Yes, that's right. I've heard that.
Yes, and she leapt on stage and said hello to everybody in the audience and shook everybody's hand on stage. That she was visiting her brother in Weatherford, which is where she was from. So that was one of the exciting adventures. And the other is that when the Opera House did the Fantastics, Harvey Schmidt came and saw it,
Oh,
who
wow.
was one of the authors.
Yeah.
And years later, the Granbury Opera House, in conjunction with Lyric Stage, produced Roadside that they wrote. Harvey Schmidt and Tom Jones, and I have the signed playbill from that show. And Harvey remembered coming to the Opera House and seeing the Fantastics, and he said, "Oh, that is the perfect theater for Roadside." And so, and indeed, it was. It was a charming production in that Opera House space. So we've had some legendary people come.
Absolutely. And, a funny kind of full circle moment. We actually have one of our families is from Weatherford. They are family of Mary Martin, and she works at Mary Martin Elementary School in Weatherford, and has a nationally renowned elementary theater program at Mary Martin Elementary, and they have performed at the Opera House with us. Their daughter is actually, I saw her earlier today. She's actually on the production team for our summer camp production that we're doing of Finding Nemo.
Fun.
So yeah, that's kind of a fun full circle moment.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, Marty, we would anytime you have a spare minute, we would love to host you down here at the Granbury Opera House and have you be with us. So, just anytime you can make it down, give me a shout, and I would love to have you with us for a show.
Oh, well, thank you. I'd love to come and be on that stage again
I
sometime.
would love for you to come be on our stage again. That would be, I can't think of very many things that would be more cool than that. So
Well,
if you
you
ever,
call me when you've got the show.
all right. Well, Marty, again, thank you so much for being with us today on the podcast. We really do appreciate it. And you take care, my friend, and we will see you soon.
Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on the 50 years.
Thanks, Marty. All right. Well, with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back on the Acting Up with GTC podcast. This portion of the Acting Up with GTC podcast is brought to you by the Granbury Theater Company. You can't stop the beat, and you can't stop the fun, and you won't want to miss Hairspray at the Granbury Theater Company. From June 6th to July 6th, get ready for big hair, bigger dreams, and nonstop fun in this high-energy, feel-good Broadway hit. Join Tracy Turnblad and friends as they sing, dance, and shake things up on the Corny Collins Show. Tickets are going fast, so grab yours today by going to granburytheatercompany.org or call the Opera House box office at 817-579-0952. Don't miss this summer's biggest musical party, only at the historic Granbury Opera House. All right, welcome back to the Acting Up with GTC podcast. I'm Micky Shearon, and I just want to send out a very sincere thank you to my very good friend, Marty Van Kleek, for being with us on the episode today. I can't think of a better way to just acknowledge and celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Granbury Opera House than to have Marty on the episode today, and what's some great stories, and just kind of gives you a little bit of a feel for the way things were 50 years ago in 1975. And this episode is dropping today, June the 19th, and so we are exactly 50 years from June 19th of 1975 on opening night of the Granbury Opera House. And it goes without saying that Granbury Theater Company, we are so honored and privileged and blessed to call the Granbury Opera House our home since 2013, when the Opera House reopened after the renovation that the city of Granbury did on the building. It is a wonderful venue. It's a wonderful place to perform in and to work out of, and we just could not be happier and more blessed than to be in the Granbury Opera House. So hope you enjoyed our little interview with Marty Van Kleek, and enjoyed kind of reminiscing about days gone by. And it's really cool that the Opera House has had 50 years of history, and who knows what's right around the corner. 50 years from now, I hope somebody will be sitting somewhere recording something in some method that in acknowledging our 100th anniversary. Wouldn't that be cool? So anyway, there are some other things going on I wanted to bring you up to speed on and just remind you of very quickly on this episode before we leave. Of course, we are still in the middle of our production of Hairspray, and it's going great. Crowds are loving it, and it is as fun of a show as you would imagine. If you've seen the movie, I think it was in 2007, came out with John Travolta and Zac Efron and Christopher Walken and Amanda Bynes, great cast, such a fun movie, and the show, the stage version, is just as fun. So if you haven't had a chance to come see Hairspray on one of its first 2 weekends, we still have 3 weekends left. It's a 5-weekend run. We run all the way through July the 6th. So please go online to granburytheatercompany.org, or you can call the Opera House box office at 817-579-0952. And book your tickets to come see us at the Granbury Opera House for one of our performances of Hairspray. And then, of course, after Hairspray closes, the very next day, Monday, July the 7th, we start our annual Granbury Theater Academy summer camps. And that's where Matt Beutner is today, my co-host. They are, for the last 2 days, they have been auditioning and doing callbacks for the summer camp show. It's going to be Finding Nemo, so it's going to be so cute, and you don't want to miss that. Again, the teens, the ages 13 to 18-year-olds, and the kids, the ages 7 to 12, will be doing the same show. They're both doing Finding Nemo, but they have their own production. And so the teens will be performing 2 full weekends, and I don't have those dates memorized, committed to memory, but go online and look. But they have 2 full weekends that they are performing, and then the kids, the ages 7 to 12, will be doing their performances the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So they get 4 performances, the Monday through Thursday, in between the 2 weekends of the teen performances. And then our little bitty kids, they will perform kind of like a cabaret version of the show. They learn several songs and a few dances, and they actually perform between the matinee and evening performance the second weekend of the teens performances. So all of that is on our website. You can go online again to granburytheatercompany.org and look up those dates and times. But again, you don't want to miss our summer camp productions. They are always super high quality, and we spare no expense. We go all out for our kids. We give them an entire month on stage at the Granbury Opera House, and so be sure and check them out. And then after our Academy summer camp is over at the end of July, then the very next thing we've got coming up that we're really excited about is our next Broadway on the Brazzers production, and that's going to be Singing in the Rain. And a lot of you that have been around a while, you've been waiting and waiting and waiting for us to bring this show back to the Granbury Opera House. Last time we had it was 2016. So yeah, it's been 9 years, and a lot of people are really anticipating this show. And so that's just kind of a picture of a snapshot of the stuff that we've got coming to the Granbury Opera House for the rest of the summer. You don't want to miss any of it. So again, go to granburytheatercompany.org or call the Opera House box office, get your tickets, and come see us down here at the Granbury Opera House. And that's all I've got for now. And so until next time, my name is Micky Shearon, and for my buddy Matt Boitner, we'll see you at the Opera House.
Thanks for listening to Acting Up with GTC. To support the podcast, visit our Patreon page, patronize our sponsors, and come join us for an upcoming production at the Granbury Opera House. Subscribe to the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, and be sure to tell us what you think of the show on our Facebook and Instagram pages. Thanks for acting up with us. See you soon.